Welcome to episode 3 of the Social Media Sobriety Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Mundo, joined alongside by my good buddy, Trevor Butler. Trevor, please say hi to the people for me.
What's going on, everybody? I'm glad to be here. Glad to help out with my good buddy, Tyler.
And today's episode is a little bit more personal to you, Trevor, as you're a guy, you can explain a little bit more in detail, but it seemed like you were just doing things left and right, whether it was working with the Kansan, whether it was traveling. I felt like you were in a new place every week. And then things started to change a little bit with your demeanor and mental health. So I guess as a quick introduction, kind of just tell the people what you were going through.
Yeah, so I will say a handful of months ago, first semester this school year, I started dealing with burnout pretty bad. So that was just something I had to overcome. You know, I was really busy. I was traveling a lot, like you said, for the daily Kansan. You know, I was all over the place. Nothing I don't love, nothing that isn't super fun, but just a combination of that and school and other obligations just became a lot. So I kind of started dealing with that. You know, it was tough, but I had a good winter break.
Okay, so now tell me a little bit more about the timeline. Like, when did you start feeling some of these things of burnout?
Middle to end of October, I'd say. You know, that's when it kind of started to come on. I was like, okay, you know, I'm dragging a little bit here.
And kind of go in depth. So you said dragging. Like what do you mean? Kind of give me like a mental difference between August 15th and November 15th.
You know, I came into the year. Sorry for all the filler words, by the way. I think I'm saying a lot. But I came into the year and I was, you know, ready to attack everything head first. It was my first semester as sports editor at the Kansan, and I was really excited. Obviously, I stayed excited through the entire semester, but I started feeling more tired. And I started putting a lot of stress on myself because I'm one of those people that expects a lot out of himself. So I started stressing quite a bit and just overall kind of, you know, not that I couldn't take on as much, but there was definitely an added layer of stress.
And what else was going on? Because obviously, like, school is a big part of it, but what other obligations did you have besides, like, your school, Kansan, and stuff like that?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, school, the Kansan, I was broadcasting for the club baseball team.
That's laced toward right field. Hit pretty well. He's going to flip the bat, and the Iron Dome drives in 3.
So that wasn't as much of a challenging load. You know, we had a handful of series in the fall, but nothing too crazy. And I was working with one of the youth ministry groups here in Lawrence. I'm a Young Life leader, so that was a couple 3 nights a week. So just a lot of stuff. I mean, all stuff that I love doing, and all stuff that, you know, it's not a chore to get up and go do it. It can just become a lot sometimes.
And now, and we'll kind of get to the present a little bit more, but what's kind of been the biggest change now here as we're talking in February?
That's a good question. I had a nice month-long break for winter break. I think that couldn't have come at a better time. And I'm just trying not to put as much stress on myself. You know, like I said, I have very high expectations of myself and my work with the Kansan and with broadcasting. And, you know, I'm kind of trying to tell myself, you know, the things that you're doing, the opportunities you're getting them for a reason.
Now talk to me a little bit more about this break. Like, what did you spend your winter break doing, and how did that really mentally reset you?
Honestly, just fully relaxing. I mean, I was hanging out at home, you know, seeing some friends from home, which was nice, playing a lot of video games. You know, I picked up some shifts at my job at home, but I work at the front desk at a swimming pool, which is great. I mean, it's great people there. Nothing too crazy. You know, it's not necessarily a job that puts me in a lot of high stress situations, so that was nice. But yeah, just spending some time with my family, spending time with friends, just doing what I can to recharge.
So as a hypothetical, what would have happened last semester, you think, if you weren't in October and kind of getting toward the break? Like, what if this happened in like the first week of September? How do you think you would have gotten through it?
Oh, that's a tough question. It's tough because I'm one of those people who really likes to try to power through things. You know, I'm like, you know what? I can attack this head on. I'll be totally fine. You know, I like to think I would just kind of continue just getting stuff done and get to that break. So that's what I'll say I'd do, is I would say, okay, you know what? We just gotta survive and perform at a high level.
Well, thank you for sharing, and like this kind of gets the foundation of kind of where Trevor was. You know, I knew you at that point. I also remember you kind of just left school without really telling anyone, which like not like a judgment or a fault of your own, but like I just remember like I was seeing, oh hey, like are you free today? And he was like, oh, I'm back in Seattle. So kind of tell me a little bit more about why do you decide to kind of leave so, I don't know if abruptly is the word or so quickly, but maybe elaborate on that.
I mean, I wouldn't say it was abruptly, but I was definitely, like I said, I was definitely ready to go home. You know, I was like, okay, you know what? My last final, my only in-person final test was on the Monday of our finals week. So it was December 8th, I think. And I'm like, well, I don't have any other reason to stay here. You know, my friends are going to start going home. There's nothing really going on here. I know basketball was like on the road that week, so it wasn't like I was going to stick around and cover another game for the Kansan. So I said, I'm just going to go home. You know, I stayed, I came home from my final, I, you know, got my bags packed, I kind of cleaned my apartment and got that all situated, and then the next morning I took a 7 a.m. flight home. I was like, you know, I'm gonna maximize the amount of time I can get just to recharge, because like I said, I definitely needed it.
Yeah, and then you get the time with the family, which is something like now that you're in college, I'm sure you really relish and cherish. Yeah. So this is, however, the social media sobriety podcast, and Trevor, I know you're not off social media, but kind of tell me a little bit about what your social media looks like on a daily basis, both personal and for your job and your projects.
Yeah, I mean, I give you a lot of credit and I envy you a lot, because I am maybe the opposite of social media sober. I spend way too much time.
Social media abused, maybe?
Something like that, yeah, sure. That's a word we could use. It's interesting. It's an interesting balance, because a lot of my social media I use for personal reasons. You know, I have my Instagram and I use TikTok and everything. I sink way too much time into those two apps. But then I use stuff like Twitter pretty professionally for the Daily Kansan. So I'm using it to, you know, cover games and stay in the loop with news. So it's tough, because there have been a lot of instances where I've said, you know, I really want to get off social media, or I've taken a few days and like taken a step back. I've gone, like I lead Young Life, and I would take my Young Life boys to summer camp for a week every summer, and I would basically be without my phone for a week. You know, I'd maybe check it once or twice a day as a leader. But I know that I can go without it. Sometimes it's just tough, because, you know, you want to constantly stay in the loop and constantly be updated on what's going on, so that can be challenging.
No, for sure. And that's one of the reasons I did re-download social media. Like, it was for my job. I needed to be aware of what was going on in Big 12 baseball. And actually, Trevor is stepping in the role I did last year, which is very, very exciting. Maybe they'll hit 6 home runs in a row this year.
I hope so.
I don't know. I wouldn't bet money on it, but I think it would be a pretty cool thing.
Cool.
I would be a little bit jealous, not gonna lie, if you called the 6 home runs in a row right after something like that happened. But
you'll get a text. I'll tell you. I want to.
You will definitely. I'll be listening. Don't worry. But going back to the social media aspect, how was or I guess a better question is, what was your phone use like during your semester last year, and what was it like during your break?
Man, that's a good question. I think during the semester, I mean, I use my phone a lot. Very, very candidly, I probably have 11 or 12 hours of screen time a day. It's kind of an issue.
Wow, that's...
Yeah, I know, yeah. You're not the first person to tell me. You won't be the last person to tell me.
Now I know why he responds to my text so quickly. Anyway, proceed.
What if I'm just really excited to text you?
Could be too. I mean, I spend like 2 hours a day on my phone, and I feel like I get back to you pretty close.
Fair enough. No comment. No, it's definitely a lot. It's definitely still a lot. But I do think when I was home for break, I was using it a lot more passively. You know, I was spending more time using it to listen to music, watch movies, that sort of thing, rather than, you know, sitting and, you know, scrolling Instagram Reels or TikTok for 6 hours a day. So it was definitely, I was still using it the same amount, and I was also I was using it less for work. So I wasn't sitting on emails or, you know, firing off tweets about Kansas athletics news or anything. You know, I was more using it just for leisure purposes and less intense purposes.
And how did that mentally change? Like, obviously, if you're using it for work, mentally, what was it like to use it kind of in a more passive or leisurely setting?
I mean, I think it lowered my stress levels a little bit. I would say it gave me a chance to not have to exclusively think about work. which I think kind of became a challenge towards the end of last year. I'm always very focused on my work. You know me, I'm very passionate about the things that I do, but it kind of became overkill to an extent. So it gave me an opportunity to, I was firing off 1 or 2 emails a week. Nothing, I wasn't completely checked out, but I was definitely able to kind of take that step back, which was nice.
And how do you think social media and your relationship with it could change for this upcoming semester? What strides do you think you can take to kind of get rid of those 11 to 12 hour days on your phone?
I think I just need to make a conscious effort to not be on my phone for 11 or 12 hours a day. At least say, okay, I'm going to set a time limit for Instagram or TikTok. I know there's apps you can download where it stops you before you go into an app.
Whoa, it sounds like a short I did a couple days ago.
There you go.
He's been following a little bit.
Gotta support.
Actually, so although this will be out by the time we release this episode, I had a short that I think came out on Wednesday or Thursday, and it was all about why are you on social media today? Do you ever have those feelings of going on there and you're just scrolling mindlessly and you're thinking,
all the time.
What am I doing?
All the time, and it's just it becomes a thing where I'm using it to pass time sometimes. That's kind of a thing to do. If I have an hour and I don't really want to commit to doing something, I'll sit and I'll scroll Twitter or I'll watch TikToks or something like that.
Do you ever find yourself just sitting down and not if you have a free moment, are you always pulling out your phone, or do you sometimes have times where you kind of just people watch and look around?
I think it kind of depends. I would say 9 times out of 10 I'm probably pulling out my phone. The only time I'm not is either when I'm sitting down to actually do some work, or if I'm having a conversation. Sometimes I'll be sitting in the journalism school and won't really be doing anything, but I'll be having passive conversation with some of my friends, and at that point I'll usually try to stay off my phone. It's always been, like I said, it's always been an issue where I'm on my phone a lot, but it feels like sometimes when I'm able to get ingrained into a conversation,
Well, actually, full transparency, when you did say you were on your phone for 11, 12 hours a day, it shocked me because most of the people I know that are like that, they're on it during a conversation. You do a good job of really staying off it, which I think is a positive. And again, I don't know what your day-to-day looks like. I don't run the stuff on the cans and stuff like that. Running this podcast, my screen time has gone up, but it's only such a small part of my day. Most of the time I'm video editing and stuff like that. So it was just very interesting to hear about that a little bit. How is your relationship now in terms of your productivity this year, and also give some insight to someone who maybe is feeling some experience of burnout? What can they do to kind of either curb those feelings, move past it, or even find some sort of solution?
I think obviously while I was still feeling that burnout first semester, I think I was still almost as productive as ever. I didn't want to let that slow me down. But I do think, like I said, having that break has allowed me to come back and get back to being really productive while also, having some energy in the tank that I definitely didn't have towards the end of last year or end of last semester. A piece of advice. It's tough because I don't really follow my own advice sometimes. I would say that if you were asking me, I'd say be wise enough to know when you need to take a step back and remember what put you in the position that you're in, because I think a lot of burnout stems from stress, and it comes from stress from work or from school or from honestly things that are good opportunities in the long run. They can just be, for lack of a better word, they can be stressful. So I think it's important to remember why you're in the position that you're in, and not take that for granted. Remember that you have the skills and the talents to put you in the spot that you're currently stressing about.
Okay, so now I got a good one for you, because you talked about winter break being that huge break that you had, mentally reset. Have you tried to institute a way to have shorter breaks, but actually throughout the school year, like maybe finding a day to recharge or unplug or anything?
I have not.
I guess a good question would be, can you? Are you capable right now of what you're doing to take a day off to unwind?
I'm sure I can, but I think I would still struggle letting myself. I've even talked to my family, and they've said, you don't have anything going on, Wednesdays. You're out of class at, XYZ time. Obviously today was different because I had some errands to run afterward, and now I'm recording this lovely podcast with you. But usually on a typical Wednesday, I'm out of class at noon, and then I'm done for the day. So my parents have said, hey, you should try and take some time, just chill, just relax, that sort of thing. But I don't know, for me, it's very hard to turn off. I'm very much like a go all the time kind of person. I like to stay busy, often to my own detriment. So I'm sure I could find a way to do that. I just think it would take some convincing of myself to do so.
Well, I'll mention this, and I mean, you're a religious guy. I love the way Brian Haney says it. Like, you're the American League, I'm National League. Like, we both believe in something similar. But anyway, I'm Jewish, and Brian and you are both Christian. One thing that I was gonna make a short on, but I'm just gonna bring it up now. The concept of the Sabbath or Shabbat, right? 6 days. God made the world, he created the world, new thing every day, and then on the seventh day, he rested. And it is a practice that I think goes so underappreciated in our society today, and not even from a religious point of view, but from a mental and societal point of view. That is something that I think could massively help burnout. So a little quick backstory for me. I have not done work on a Friday night to Saturday night, which is when the Jewish Sabbath is. I have not done work like that, I think all but one time since I've gotten to KU.
Wow.
And it was something for me where I would work toward that deadline of Friday night, like Friday night at 5:30, and then I would just be done with all my work. And the first thought is like, oh, are you just pushing it off? But when you intentionally set a break like that, it actually allows you to be more productive the rest of the week. And it kind of gives you that goal to work toward. And additionally, one thing I did, and it's related to social media in a way. I don't use my phone Friday nights at all. I did one time in the last probably year when I was at KU because I had a friend like coming in that day. So like I needed to be able to correspond with him. But I was off of my phone every Friday night, and I would like to on Saturdays too. And that's just something to where I think people don't really take the Sabbath for what it should be, which is a full day of rest. Yes, some people go to church, some people go to synagogue, but they don't actually do what God's intention was, and that is to have a break. So with that spiel being said, Trevor, could that be something you could possibly implement in your life?
It's a good question.
And this is not, I don't know, I didn't expect to be throwing stuff like that out in this episode, but it just seems like you were in need of such that break, and that could be some sort of avenue to give it to you. Because I do think when you're not only just working a lot, because what you do, but you're constantly corresponding on social media, like that time to unplug could be massive for you. And I think that's going to help your relationship with your work, with your social media, and with your friends. So, would you have anything to comment on that?
It's a good idea. I know we've talked about this before. It's a good idea. I just, like I said, I have such a hard time letting myself take time off or like back down from my work, because I've kind of adopted this mentality with all of my work, even though obviously it's not true, that if I don't do something, nobody's going to do it. Which historically has never been the case. And I don't know how I got myself to there, because, the people I work with always get the stuff done that I tell them to get done. But I don't know, I always kind of worry that if I don't do something, it's going to fall to the wayside. So I, again, have to be on all the time and getting all the work done. That way it gets done.
No, I mean, I do understand that. Like there is always that thing of, oh, what would happen? And before I started doing kind of that little detox every week, I always had that feeling of like, if I don't get this done, like nobody's going to get this done. And that's definitely something to take into consideration. But if you can, like, I think it's a very good way to practice. And for people listening at home, I think it's something that it's at least worth trying, whether it's once a month. But it definitely helped me with a lot of my burnout. I feel like I'm never really stressed over time because of that break, because I know that I do have this 25-hour period where I'm not going to do work. I thought that was very, very interesting. Okay, now let's talk about doom scrolling. I think that's something that Trevor alluded to earlier. I guess in your own words, define doom scrolling.
I mean, for me, it's just sitting on my phone for an hour and a half, just watching reels, watching TikTok, scrolling through Twitter.
And usually, okay, you mentioned Twitter, but how much of that is like productive scrolling? Because there is good things to know about like what's going on
occasionally
in
with
sports.
Twitter, it's productive scrolling. You know, if I'm hearing, I mean, there was some trades in the NBA today, and I was like, I want to see what's going on with that. Because I believe Ochai Agbaji, one of the KU guys, got flipped to maybe the Nets. That's what I was seeing. It was either the Nets or the Clippers. That's off topic, but so sometimes it can be productive when I'm trying to stay engaged with some news or stuff. But 9 times out of 10, I have nothing to do for an hour. Let's go watch TikTok.
Okay, and do you ever like? I guess you're aware. Like you're aware that you're doing it, or is there ever a time where you're just losing track of time by scrolling?
No, I'm aware, and there are times that I'll even say, okay, I'm going to do this for 5 more minutes, then I'm going to get up, and then I don't get up, and then I'm like, okay, 5 more minutes, and it kind of becomes one of those repeating cycles, and yeah, eventually I'm able to get out of it, but it's tough.
All right, so I do know, like we mentioned the positives, like you are more aware of what's going on in sports. Like on a personal note, and I mentioned this in one of the shorts I did this week, there is so much I don't know about, like sports, the big news I get on ESPN or something.
Yeah.
But what's going on in the world, I'm so out of touch. And yeah, if you are doom scrolling like that, I think you can find videos that are productive. I'm not here to argue that. Yeah. But what's another maybe positive you have of doom scrolling? And then kind of what are some of your personal negative effects that you've seen from doom scrolling? Maybe tie that back to your burnout.
Positives. I mean, I think the positive is it's an opportunity to kind of turn your brain off a little bit, which, I mean, isn't always a good thing, but sometimes if I have a few minutes to spare and it's been a long day, I just kind of need to sit for a few minutes. But then I think the biggest way that it kind of ties back into burnout is takes time away from actually being productive. You know, and this kind of ties back into what you were just saying about, you know, taking days off and the Sabbath. There are some days where I don't really do anything. I believe Sunday this past week, I mean, I got a few things done in the morning. You know, I did my laundry and all that sort of thing, but I didn't really get anything done that day. And I kind of just feel bad when I don't get stuff done. I'm like, it feels weird not to be productive. I don't like being unproductive, at least for like a full day. And, you know, not only does, you know, sitting on my phone all day and doom scrolling kind of cause that, it takes time away from when I could actually be getting stuff done. And that stuff starts to pile up and then you get more stressed down the line. So procrastination, that's a big, I don't necessarily say I have a procrastination problem, because I'm not one of those people that'll, you know, wait till the last minute to turn, you know, 5 or 6 assignments in. I'm typically not turning anything in overdue. But it can become an issue when you keep punting stuff down the line.
Okay, so we mentioned a little bit of social media, mentioned about you and your burnout. Mm-hmm. How much on social media do you see of other people's posts, like on your personal thing? And could that lead to your burnout, seeing what other people are doing on LinkedIn, for example, or Instagram?
I think a little bit. I mean, I'm a very competitive person, and I've told people time and again that I love doing the sports media stuff, the sports broadcasting stuff, and I really want to be great at it. You know, I really want to be good at it. So because I'm so competitive, I think if I see other people doing stuff, I'm like, okay, well now I got to step it up and I got to keep, you know, climbing that ladder. Which I think to an extent is actually a good mentality to have. You know, I grew up being a fan of Kobe and LeBron, so kind of that Kobe work ethic. You know, you want to, I love the people I work with, but I also want to try to work as hard as I possibly can. So I think there's some good to an extent, but it can kind of get to a point where it stops being good. Right,
and I do think that's a good mentality to have, like, especially in the field you're in, like you want to go into broadcasting. Mm-hmm. That's all about being the best and the most committed. Like I learned that firsthand, probably why I'm not going that route. But I do like commend you for that. Like that is a very good thing to have, but it's also about finding kind of that balance and when is that job not going to take over your life and kind of that idea. So going back to the premise of kind of what I said earlier and talking about the broadcast, this is all the way back at the start of the episode. Okay. What are you going to do differently this semester to make sure you are feeling better? Like I guess just give me a summary of that. I think we alluded to it before, but like I'd love a concrete plan from you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the big thing for me is going to be at least attempting to put less stress on myself. telling myself I'm doing this for a reason and I'm involved in this for a reason, and the opportunities that I'm getting clearly mean I've done something right. And I think a lot of my burnout is sparked by me being very self-critical. I'm very, the wins are the expectation, the losses are the worst thing to ever happen in the entire world. Which, from what I've been told, it's something that, to kind of put it in our language, something that a lot of baseball pitchers deal with, where, if you go out and you throw 6 innings of 1-run ball with 2 hits, that's a good start. You leave up 3-1, and you say, okay, you're in line for the win. That's a good day. A lot of pitchers will say, okay, that's the expectation. I can do better than that. I can throw 7 shutout with 2 hits, or I can throw 8 no-hit innings. So that's kind of the expectation. And then a bad start is the meltdown. You go 4 innings, 6 runs allowed, that sort of thing. So a lot of them won't celebrate the wins and won't say, okay, I had a good start today, but they'll eat themselves alive over the losses. And that's something I find myself doing a lot. A good article, an article that gets a lot of views, or a call that people think is good, and I get texts about, that's the expectation, because I want to be really good at this, so I have to keep stacking those. And then, a subpar article or a tough call where maybe I slip up on a pronunciation, that is something that sits with me for hours and days sometimes. So I think just kind of being happy about the good stuff, that's going to be the big thing.
Yeah, but say, it sounds you're so critical. Do you ever not enjoy what you're doing, or is that always still the case?
At least as of now, I love every second of it. I've told people I love sports, I love to travel, and I love talking. So, broadcasting is all those things combined. And, I think for as critical as I am with myself, it only, makes me work harder and gets me closer to where I want to be. So it's you take the good with the bad with these sort of things.
For sure. Okay, so 2 more questions for you.
All right.
One, dropping on Super Bowl Sunday, so I got to hear your score prediction right now, and I will throw up mine and Katie's prediction and post that in. But let me know what you got. What do you think this game's going to happen, and how it's going to happen?
We said it early. I'm from Seattle, and part of me wants to be that troll that says, "Oh, naturally I'm from Seattle. I want the Patriots to win just to rage bait on my friends." But no, I gotta run with the Seahawks, and they have a pair of KU alums on that roster, so that'd be pretty cool. I actually looked for a little while at potentially trying to get a credential for Media Day.
Ooh.
I figured I'd take a flyer on it. Found out the hard way that they close all those credentials in December. So, did not get one of those, unfortunately. Maybe next year. We'll give it a try. But
yeah, when the Packers are in there, right? That's what I heard.
Whatever you tell yourself. Sure.
Because it's not going to be the Angels if we go that route. But anyway, proceed. Yeah. What score we got?
I'm going to go Seahawks. I'm going to go 28-17. I think the defense, Drake May starts off hot. I think the Patriots score 14 in the first quarter. And then I think the pretty dang good Seattle defense keys in from there.
It's funny. I could be wrong in post, but I think you were so close to combining Katie and I score.
Really?
I believe I said 31-17, and she said 28-24, which is kind of nuts. So.
28-24 would be kind of funny. Yeah. A little flip of the 2015 game, the Malcolm Butler game.
There you go. Showed some of that Jermaine Kearse catch. I think is one of the most underrated catches.
Maybe the most forgotten great play in Super Bowl history.
No, 100%. 100%.
They win that game. I think he wins Super Bowl MVP. It's him or it was Chris Matthews, the guy who caught the onside against your Packers a couple weeks before, and then I think he had 9 catches for 115 yards.
I just totally tuned you out for the second half of that because I was so uncalled for. I'm bringing you here on my show and you're slandering the Packers, but Brandon Bostic, I do know that name. So anyway, and don't even get me started about what happened at Soldier Field this year because it gave me PTSD of that same thing.
I'm a Texans fan, so I can't talk at all because that game in New England was brutal. Anyway,
anything you want to add before we kind of sign off here? Burnout, whether it's social media, whether it's just more sports you want to talk, and anything you want to finish up with?
If you let me start talking sports, this is going to be a 6-hour episode.
Okay, so we're going to cut that part off. So anything about burnout and social media?
Yeah, just like I said, I probably need to follow my own advice, but if it's something you're going through, my big things are take a step back and make sure to celebrate the wins, however big or small they are.
I think that's a great way to live by, and maybe Trevor will have you on in a couple months and see how.
I sure hope so.
how everything's going. Now you have a podcast and all the tens and tens of viewers that are going to keep you accountable.
Oh, wow, 10s now?
Oh, yeah.
That's exciting. Look at us.
I added them up a little bit, you know.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
if me and my
In
mom
the
watch
aggregate,
every
yeah.
reel,
Okay.
it adds up.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I'm really excited to kind of see where you go from here, Trev.
Thank you.
Obviously, have a great time calling some KU baseball. I heard you going to some great places. No more Sterlington, Louisiana, which is a whole nother story. But to all my viewers, thank you for listening, and tune in next week for more social media sobriety.